Hello, everyone. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo, the go-to podcast for those seeking success that resonates on every level. Our guide on this journey to success is J.A. Dava, co-founder of Latreia Coaching and Consulting. Each episode, we challenge you to step outside your comfort zone in redefining holistic success. Because in order to truly excel, one must rise in all aspects of life: spiritual, physical, relational, and philanthropical. So buckle up. Let's explore how your vocation and well-being can harmonize perfectly. And give a warm welcome to the host of Challenging Your Status Quo, J.A. Dava.
All right. This is J.A. Dava. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo. Man, I'll tell you what, I'm excited about this afternoon. We're recording this afternoon, but I'm very, very excited because, every time you've joined us on these episodes of Challenging Your Status Quo, we've covered everything from spiritual, we've covered relational, we've covered physical, and but there's one very, very important well-being that is so outside of being focused inwardly, but this is focusing outward. And I will tell you right now that one of the well-beings of challenging your status quo is not only the vocational side of it, which is the biggest reason why a lot of you guys are on this particular episode, but the guest that I have will actually take this and take us to the next level of what I call the philanthropical well-being. And guys, one of the ways that I end the show every single time is to say, be blessed. I mean, go be a blessing, right? So be blessed and go be a blessing. And to me, what that really means is that every single one of us, the mere fact that you and I are breathing today means that we're already blessed and we have the ability to make choices for ourselves. And but there are people that might not have that same blessing quite so. I mean, they're still alive, but they might need some help, right? And so sometimes one of the most rewarding things that we can absolutely feel for ourselves is when we're giving a blessing to others. So, it's one thing to feel like I'm successful financially, I'm successful relationally, I'm successful physically. It's another thing to be able to feel the gratitude of making a difference in somebody's life. And so I'm not going to say much more because the guest that we have, I believe, number one, that he is about to be a blessing to every single one of us. But this gentleman is not only a very, very good friend. I mean, I do consider him family. I consider him someone who I've just had the pleasure of meeting in different parts of my life. But eventually we ended up working together, and eventually we walked away from where we were working together, but we've ended up in places that honestly we're fully aligned. He's not only a family member, he's not only a friend, I consider him a brother as well. So Troy VanEvery is one of those names that you might already know. Many of you might know because Troy was somebody who was very involved in the mortgage industry. Troy has been in the mortgage industry for well over 20 years, starting all the way from like his home bank life to the Wells Fargo's of life, all the way through to where he and I work together in the Zenix world. Okay. So part of it is that when we finally did end up working together, he and I worked as a client and coach and client and trainer in a different way. He was with, at that time, Fairway, and I was with a company called Home Buyers Marketing. But then we ended up together in a place called Zenix. And this man made a difference in my life. And so I'm absolutely honored to have him right here as my guest on this podcast, especially talking about the philanthropical side, because this became more than a vocation for both Troy and I. We eventually got to know each other in different ways, and really where we fully align is giving away blessings, making a difference in people's lives. So with that, I want to be able to introduce Troy VanEvery to every single one of you guys. And so Troy, welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Uh, Absolutely. Well, Troy, I mean, it's a long time coming, right? You and I've come a
It is.
long ways, right? And there's so much about what you now represent. Can you just share with us a little bit? I mean, I gave a little bit of background there, but I'd really like for you to just kind of expound on it as people are going to be wondering, you know, who is Troy today and what does he bring to the table? Can you just share a little bit of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Jay, I appreciate all of the background and, it's really great to be here and share with you. So I've been in the mortgage business for, over 20 years. I've actually did residential and commercial real estate as well as a licensed loan officer. Have been on several teams and worked in the industry. I've actually been a vice president of marketing alliance programs as well. And so I've definitely seen the mortgage business from a lot of different perspectives for sure. And, one of the things about that, just from a standpoint, I'll give you a little glimpse into that, and I'm going to share more about that later. But I did have the opportunity to work with several nonprofit organizations during my career in the mortgage industry. And so again, I'll talk more about that in just a bit. But JA, it goes back to giving back. And, as far as, myself is concerned, that's what really drives me. And if there's something that I can do every day to encourage someone, to help someone, to basically leave someone better than when I interacted with them, that's what I want to do. And that's where my heart is.
Yeah, for sure. And you and I ended up together in a company called Zinix, right?
We
So
sure did.
you and I ended up there, and you were my senior for sure, right? I mean, you taught me so much, Troy. I don't think I've ever really taken the time to thank you for a lot of what you taught me, because for the 3 years that I did get to work with you there, I was able to hone in on the things that I believe today has made so much of who I am as a coach and as a trainer. So I want to thank you for that, because our audience is also very much intrigued by what you have to say, especially because you know what? I'm a coach, I'm a trainer. And if you taught me a lot of what's already there, brother, you got a lot to say. And I want you to be able, I want to be able to kind of expound on that a little bit. But as I have that ESP logo on top and I see it on your shirt, can you just tell us where you currently work and what your title is, and then I'm gonna ask you later on why you made a change. But can you just tell us what you're currently doing now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be happy to. And I appreciate you saying that, Jay, but you've helped me a whole lot more than I've helped you. And you've been a true blessing to me personally and professionally. And just love working with you and love sharing life with you. I really do. And so, I talked a little bit about, what I'm doing. One of the things that, as I mentioned, I had the privilege to do is to work with Habitat for Humanity, Miracle League, Make-A-Wish Foundation, Special Olympics Georgia, the United Way. Actually, one of the very coolest things I've ever done is I got a group of loan officers together on a Saturday, and we did an event called Tug a Plane. And so we actually went to Atlanta at the airport there, and we were on the UPS section over there, and we were pulling a 757 jet with a rope. Now, certainly the engines were running and all. It wasn't from a dead stop, but it was a blast. And so that was something that was just, I'll always remember. We had a live radio group out there in the whole 9 yards, but it was just a blast. And so with that, I thoroughly enjoyed that part of it. That was only a small portion though of my job, but that's truly where my heart was. And so, fast forward a bit to where we are now, and I decided to leave the mortgage industry and move into a full-time role with a nonprofit. And so currently I am working with ESP. It stands for Extra Special People, and I am the major gifts officer. And what that entails is that I'm usually in the office about 1 day a week, and then traveling around to all of our ESP sites throughout the week, which I just love. So we have locations in Athens, where we were originally founded, also Atlanta, Rome, and we are working to expand into Savannah currently as well. And so that's just kind of a general overview about the company. So
I will be asking you a little bit more about ESP in a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that people understood what you're wearing there, right? But Troy, most of the people that are joining us is because of the fact that they need help in the mortgage industry or are looking for tips. And Troy, I can't say enough about where you were in the mortgage world, not only as a loan officer, a realtor. You were also someone who was in marketing. In other words, business development was a major part of who you were. In fact, that's how I first met you. You were really kind of somebody that was a marketer, a trainer, already kind of helping grow a branch of Fairway. And so that's how we met. So I would love for you, in 20-something years of business, Troy, give us some insight a little bit about how you feel about what's happening in the mortgage industry today. First of all, I just want to hear your thoughts on what's happening in the mortgage industry. Is this something so unique, Troy, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hopefully everybody has about 2 or 3 hours, and I'll get into it. No, it's there's a lot going on for sure. One of the things that definitely holds true is that history repeats itself in the mortgage industry. Now, certainly we've come through a pandemic, which is nothing ordinary whatsoever. There's nothing to compare it to. So certainly we have that. But typically the mortgage industry is very cyclical. It does repeat itself, as I mentioned, from a history standpoint. So one of the things that can be very helpful is whatever market that you're in, take the time to take diligent, intentional notes about what you're doing and how you're doing it, strategies, tactics, that type of thing, because chances are down the road, months from now, years from now, you're going to be rolling into the same market again. And what's very important about that is if you can have that intelligence and that information of what you did to combat, to be successful, to do all those great things in a different marketplace, that's going to give you a huge heads up from that standpoint. The other thing that I really want to encourage as well, and this is one of the things that I had to learn, throughout my career, is to always ask questions. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on another angle as well, but always ask questions, always be a student of the mortgage industry. One of the things that I've always said is, I don't know everything there is to know about the mortgage industry. I still don't, I never will. It is so deep and wide, as all of you know, and Jay, you can definitely attest to that, is, again, be a student of the mortgage industry every single day, learn about it, figure it out. Find out as much as you possibly can. When there's those teachable moments and those opportunities within your office, with your manager, with your teammates, take advantage of that and take the time to learn and to grow, because that is truly what it's all about there.
Absolutely. So even though you said it's cyclical, the change can sometimes be drastic, but cyclical from the perspective that this isn't the worst it'll ever be. It won't be the best that it will ever be. It just kind of continues to go up and down and all the way around, right?
For sure.
So I love that you said that. So I'm going to go back a little bit because I want people to understand. There's an awful lot of people that know the Zinix name, Zinix, the Mortgage Academy, probably one of the best mortgage academies, period, out there. Okay?
Absolutely.
Casey Cunningham did a great job putting that together. She put her heart and soul into it. But there were some unsung heroes within that group. You're one of those, by the way. By the time I stepped in, I just remember the role that you already were playing, and not only in the development of a lot of those classes. and what people brag about, right? So the accountability, the actual structure of the classes, the originator program, all the way to the excelled programs like Edge, and all of those classes were just, there's so much about them. And so I want you to kind of tell me just a little bit about what are some of the things that you were holding people accountable, something fierce. I've never seen such accountability, but it was for their good. And that's one of the things that you really, really just drilled into me, is that it's one thing to say you did something, it's another thing to confirm that you did something, right? And so total accountability for their betterment, by the way. And that's what made Zenix unbelievable, right? And so kudos to you for being a part of creating that. But tell us some of the things that you believe even today are still some of those things that, man, you ought to be doing this. This is non-negotiable. What are some of those so-called basics that you think should be happening in every single person's life in the loan officer world?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of my favorite quotes is by Henry Ford, and it says, "Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right." And I truly believe that, and that's one of the things that I would share with loan officers, with managers, with leaders as well. And one of the things that's very interesting is, for instance, if you were to, have an accountability partner, let's say that, let's fast forward a few months. It's super hot right now, but let's say it's colder and we're jumping into December, right? And we're setting our New Year's resolutions. And one of the things that can happen is if we set those New Year's resolutions, let's say to get healthy and to exercise and get fit and all those good things, but we do it by ourselves. Think about that. And then think about if we were to do that with someone else, with an accountability partner. Now, J.A., you've run so many marathons, and, there's no way I could keep up with you. I would like to hang on for maybe a couple miles and then I'd probably drop right off. But, one of the things that's very interesting about that is I want you to think about if you had an accountability partner. Let's say that you're jogging together and you do it, every other day, something like that. There's going to be those days where I'm going to call J.A. and say, "Hey, man, I don't have it in me. I'm wiped out. I cannot go for a run." And Jay is going to tell me, "Come on, let's go. Let's make it happen. I know you can do it. Once you get out there, you're going to feel better." Right. And so I'm going to go. There's going to be those days where he's going to, be there, right? He's going to want to be grabbing a couch and just chilling out, and I'm going to call him and say, "Hey, man, I'm ready for you. I'm ready to go. Let's get those miles, popped in there again. I'll hang on for a few, but you're going to keep running there." But I want you to think about the accountability piece. And, a lot of times people, when they do exercise, that's a New Year's resolution, it drops off at about Valentine's Day, which is kind of interesting. But I want you to think about what can happen, though, if you're doing exercise and you're being diligent about that for 6 weeks at the beginning of the year. But what would happen if you were diligent with that throughout the end of the year, the entire time, right? And we think about, all of that time together in that entire year versus just 6 weeks of the year. And having an accountability is very important. Jay mentioned, about my tenacity to hold folks accountable. What that is for me is certainly motivating them, encouraging them, but also, again, holding them accountable to help them to be the best that they can be. Many times I was called a personal trainer, right, Jay? I think that was one of them. There may have been some other things that I was called as well, but hopefully they were all positive. But right. That's truly what it is. And I think about the individuals that have helped me in my career and pushed me in a positive way to be even better. And I think about where I would be and where I wouldn't be if I didn't have those individuals in my life. And so that's a really important piece of it from an accountability side. Jay, you mentioned some other ideas and stuff like that. The interesting part about individuals with your clients that you're working with your referral partners, the best thing that you can do is ask questions and get curious. And I know that sounds simple, but it's absolutely true. It's amazing what you find out from them, even if you've known them forever, like Jay and I have known each other. You know, it's always interesting. The other thing that's going to happen too is you will hear some things, because individuals will tell you about their personal life and they'll tell you about their professional life, because those are the most important things to them, and they're going to share those with you. I just want to encourage you to take that in. I want to encourage you to think about when you're working with your coworkers, when you're working with your clients, when you're working with your referral partners, your managers, that kind of thing, those individuals that you report to. Think about the times that you reach out to them to encourage them. Think about the times that you reach out to them on a personal side and not just needing something for the business. Certainly, we're going to have plenty of time to do that, but that's another important part, and that relationship building is absolutely essential. And when you figure out what drives them and what motivates them, and you can figure out how you can come alongside them and help them to fulfill their mission and their passion in their personal life and professional life, you're going to be good to go.
And that's where the trust is starting to be built, right? And then,
Absolutely.
as you taught so many times, it takes getting to, number one, know you, right? Got to like you, trust you. And really that trust factor is just before they start really doing business with you. I mean, you might get a couple in the like you stages, but it's not one that you can build a future on. But once you have that trust built, right? And you know, then sky's the limit. And part of that trust factor is the fact that you know not just about their professional lives, you know their personal lives. You actually care. You actually, you know, and like you said also, Troy, and I think that's a really important point that you just made. When you find out something about them, it's almost like trying to figure out, what can I help this person solve, right? And what can I help this person to grow their business? And that takes asking the questions, and then going a little bit further than that is listening to the answer, not just waiting to ask a bunch of questions because you have a list of questions to ask, but never really listening to the answer. So yeah.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things along that too is let's say, for example, and I've actually used this particular idea before, and it worked out really well, but I had a real estate agent that was big into the American Cancer Society, personally and professionally. And I found out that they had a Relay for Life and a walk and all that stuff coming up. I found out when it was and where it was and that kind of thing, just kind of casually in information and discussions, and showed up at the event. Didn't tell them I was coming, just showed up. Yeah. And surprised them. And again, it wasn't at all about me. It was all about them. And it was all about what they're passionate about, that I'm showing them that, you know, I care about them and I care about furthering what they're trying to do in their passion.
Yeah, for sure. And Troy, the last thing I want to ask you on the vocational side of it, because I really want to get to the really some of the best parts about this thing, because it's one thing to help these guys get to vocational success, but the joy of understanding holistic success by being able to balance it with philanthropical is, a lot of people don't ever get there. They just don't. And so we'll talk about that in just a sec. But today, one of the things that people have abandoned, it's amazing, something that we teach tremendously, is your database, right? So, Troy, what's the value of a database? What do you think?
I mean, it's essential. I mean, it is gold. It truly is. But it does make a huge difference though, what you put into it. You know, the consistency piece of it. If you're putting in some great information and some diligent notes and information, like I was sharing before, you know, about their family, about their passions, about their hobbies, that kind of thing. That's the kind of information that really makes a difference. The other thing too, with your clients, be very detailed about, you know, what type of mortgage did they get? What was the interest rate when they got the mortgage? What was the term of their mortgage? What was the reason why they bought the house for the mortgage that you helped them with? Think about that. And a lot of times they'll say, well, you know, we're going to be here for 5 years. They may only be there for 2. They may be there for 15. You just never know. But those are the types of things that make a huge difference. As you look at that database, the other thing that's important is the more information you have in it, the better opportunity you're going to have to mine that database and be able to filter out the information that you need. So that can always be, a really important piece as you're moving along. One of the cool things that you could do too is, let's say someone is, you're working with some clients that are not there yet from a credit score standpoint. Do you have an opportunity with those credit scores and have a way to jump into that database? Let's say that there's a new program that's come out that has lower credit score qualifications and all. Can you jump into that database in a moment's notice and do a quick search and figure out, hey, there's 5 individuals that would meet this criteria, find that information and reach out to them and say, hey, I've got a great opportunity for you. This might just work. When do you have time to talk about it further? Think about the impact of what that is, that you're staying in touch with them, you're being an advocate for them, and you're thinking about them and proactively looking out for them to help them to get into a home. And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. You know what's amazing, Troy? You talked about accountability partners. You talked about asking questions, and you're talking about really consistency in making sure that you're touching your database. In today's world, there's an awful lot of focus on technology, but the one thing that it cannot replace, technology cannot replace, is accountability. It's the openness and the asking the right and purposeful type of questions. And it can't even really do the consistency that it's going to take, because part of it might be able to, consistently set up a journey, but it still comes down to whether or not the person's really going to follow up or not. And so technology has never, ever replaced what the true human factors are in being a successful loan officer. And that, that's coming, guys, for all of you that are listening and watching this right now. That's coming from probably one of the best coaches you will ever hear talk this way. Okay. We just got back from Mastermind, Troy, and all the things that you were already teaching that you helped develop inside of Zenix and the academy that it is. It's almost like people are saying, get back to the basics. And yet we've been teaching it all along. You know what I mean? So
right.
Kudos to you and just a great job on that. Thank you for making a difference to our loan officers and our leaders out there. But I want to start to kind of go towards the really exciting stuff here, because part of it is that some people might be held back in their own success. And this is a very hard bridge for some people to fully understand and even cross. But there is this thing called vocational success, okay? But then we here at Latreia absolutely believe that there has to be other well-beings within each person that might just take them to that so-called joyful success that a lot of people are looking for. And we believe that spiritual well-being, relational well-being, how are you doing with your family and friends? How are you doing physical well-being? And then how are you doing vocationally? If you'll notice, that's number 4 on the list, okay? And then the 5th one, shortly after becoming successful financially, vocationally, is this thing called philanthropic, right? Troy, it blew my mind. We already left Zenix, okay? My business partner and I, and Paul Waldrop, right? When we walked away from Zenix and to start our own company, and which, by the way, she did a great job just blessing us to take the coaching system out and expand on it. It absolutely blew us away that you left Zenix to pursue where you currently are, I believe. Because one thing that you've always told me while we were working together is that you always felt like there was a bigger, there was just a bigger purpose in your life, by the way. And I don't know if you remember any of that, but you always talked about it. right? And I always thought, no, he's a lifer for sure in the mortgage industry. And then you left. And I remember Paul and I just kind of calling each other saying, did you see that Troy left? What's he doing? And then all of a sudden we find out that you're here at ESP. So first and foremost, why did you leave the mortgage industry? Just out of curiosity. Do you mind sharing?
Well, it really was, Jay, a culmination of a lot of different things. And so, been in the mortgage business for a long time. And as I mentioned, working with these nonprofit organizations, again, what drives me is making a difference in someone's life. And the main reason I left is to have hopefully a larger impact, hopefully have the opportunity to encourage and as you mentioned early in today's podcast is encouraging others and blessing others, and that's really what it's all about for me. And so my wife and I, my wife's a nurse, and she loves what she does. She is absolutely passionate about it. I was certainly passionate about what I did in the mortgage industry of helping individuals. And this is the next season, the next chapter, if you will, in my life, and really where I felt led to go. And, really was encouraged to pursue this. And, just when I joined ESP, I got to tell you, Jay, it was definitely where I felt God brought me. And it was just a perfect, for me, a perfect match from that standpoint. And what ESP is all about, just to kind of give an overview of that, is we provide transformational experiences for individuals with disabilities and their families. And we do all that to change communities for the better. And so that is really in a nutshell what we do. And it's an amazing thing. And I know we're going to talk a little bit further about that, but that's ideally and initially what drew me to ESP and why I'm here.
So from the well-being perspective, right, you ended up, vocation is always important. So of course,
Sure.
and it is, right? So you continued on, you left a vocation that really, truly, I didn't think you'd ever leave, because you were masterful at it. Honestly, I think you were one of those coaches that never, you're just an unsung hero. Let's just call it that, right? And so, and there's many people that benefited because of your teachings in the mortgage industry. So you walking away, there's the vocational well-being that you needed to make sure it's continued, but you obviously are pursuing this thing called the philanthropical well-being, which is where a lot of people, Troy, don't ever get to, for many different reasons. A lot of people believe, that giving means you're just like, you're being careless by giving your money away when things are so tough. And so the philanthropical well-being is obviously something that you pursued along with your vocational. How important is that? First of all, I just want to ask you, how important is that? And is there really a correlation between joyful success by balancing those two?
I mean, it's essential, for my wife and I and my family. And I was, very blessed to have a mom and dad that encouraged, giving back, serving others, being philanthropic from really a very early age. But there's a point in time when, after you have that influence of your parents and you grow up, you're making those decisions for your own. And that's one of the things that's just critical for me. It absolutely is. And, one of the things I will say is to go from an industry and to go from an area that I knew so well and felt very comfortable in and really enjoyed. It was tough and, quite honestly, scary. I had some fear involved. The fear factor was real to step into a brand new industry from that standpoint. But my passion was there for sure. And you probably heard me say this particular quote, Jay, but it's Mark Twain said, "I've had many worries in my life, many of which never happened."
Yeah.
And so I think about my life, and I think about the time that I've spent, the time that I've wasted worrying about things that just never, ever happened. And, you know, Jay, you've inspired me so many times with, you know, running marathons, running for so many different individuals and causes. And, you know, it's just amazing. And, you know, you think about the idea of running a marathon, and you know, it's overwhelming. It truly is. And you think about, well, but it only starts with that first step. And, you know, from a mortgage industry, from a personal, you know, type of thing, I think all of us have had those situations and circumstances that, you know, we're fearful about change. We're fearful about what's going to happen. And it's just a matter of us taking that first step in that direction. And so that's what began to happen. When I left the mortgage industry, I began to, you know, study, to immerse myself in the nonprofit area and world. And honestly, that passion just really drove me to make that change. And, you know, it's challenging. And I want everyone on the podcast to think about, where do you want to be? What are you passionate about personally and professionally? And I just want to encourage you to do it. Don't let the fear, don't let the circumstances and the questions pop in your mind. Start taking a step in that direction today, because that's where it all starts.
Yeah. And, you know, and Troy, I got to tell you, because when you left, and the industry that I just never thought you were going to leave. When you left without, you didn't have a life raft. You just decided that it was time. It was done. You were done. And so, and you were going to move on. And then you kept running into this particular scenario. I just think it was knocking on your door.
For sure.
And I've known that all along, even while things are tough, how easy would it be, right? When things are tough, Troy, for us to really not be thinking philanthropically, but yet how much of a reward is it to take even your toughest times and be able to just look into somebody else who's having it just a little bit rougher than you are, and then being able to make a difference in that world. So I know that that's what you got to feel, but there's a lot of people, Troy, out there that would love to give, but they're worried to give because they think giving is being careless and not, you should be taking care of your own family first, that type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to people like that? You know?
You know, I totally agree. You know, I really feel like everybody has a desire to give back, a desire to be philanthropic from that perspective. I would just encourage everyone to think about what you can give, because everyone is different. As far as each and every one of us, as far as what we can give, whether it's our time, whether it's a word of encouragement, whether it's a financial gift from that standpoint. One of the things that really was interesting, I was speaking with a supporter of ESP recently, and they were talking about when they were very young, that they got involved with Habitat for Humanity. And I've been involved with a ton of Habitat for Humanity builds and learned a ton on that. Just had some wonderful experiences and that kind of thing. And one of the things that he said really struck me. He said, you know, I was very young. I was in my 20s and I wanted to support Habitat for Humanity, but I didn't have the money to give. And so one of the things that Habitat had was an opportunity for someone to buy a box of nails, let's say for $19, or a door for $100, or a doorknob for $35. And I just want to share that with you as an example of, it's not a matter of how much that is. Don't ever think, oh, well, I'm only giving $1. It's not going to make a difference. It absolutely does make a difference. I just want to encourage you to think about that again: time, financial resources, anything like that that you can give. It will definitely change your life. It really will. And that perspective, as Jay just mentioned, going through difficult times and that kind of thing, giving back. One of the things that we have here at ESP, and I call it a ripple effect. And one of those ripples is the fact that we work with a lot of high schools, colleges, universities, that kind of thing, that have volunteers there. We also pay individuals part-time to come and help out at our summer camps, as we have right now. And we have story after story after story of young men and women that have gone through difficult circumstances there. And, they are having a challenge, let's say, with all sorts of things, but let's say it's anxiety and depression, which we've seen that. They come and volunteer, or they come and work part-time at ESP, and it changes their life. And it really gives them a completely different perspective from that standpoint. And so, I just wanted to share that because that is a very important part of it. The other part of it is when you think about, giving back, those opportunities are there. A lot of times we can get super busy and things are going on and we can miss those opportunities. And so I just want to encourage you to, in a sense, just kind of slow down and think about those opportunities that are there. I know many times in my life, personally, professionally, I can't tell you how many times I've been rushing around trying to do something, meet a deadline, get to a meeting, or take care of something personally, whatever it might be. And I'll go to a store, or I'll have something happen along the way, for instance, and someone will cross my path and I will have a chance to talk to them.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I need to slow down. And it's a great reminder to go, you know what? It's not about me. It's about someone else.
That's right.
And so that's one of the things that does happen from time to time. And just want to encourage you to keep looking for those opportunities.
Yeah, a great leader in our industry, a gentleman by the name of Dave Williams. I think you know who Dave Williams is, but Dave Williams just came out with a LinkedIn message that says, those godly moments, those so-called divine appointments, right? And being able to be open to that. Troy, I want you to talk about ESP. Now you're with ESP. My business partner has a close reason to really love ESP, right? And but I want you to tell me what ESP is all about, and what you guys do, because I want our audience to start thinking about whether it's time, whether it's encouragement or financial. I want them to see what you've dove into and what we're going to be supporting as Latreia, by the way. But tell us about ESP.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's so much that we do. I mentioned earlier about the ripple effect. And as I mentioned, the volunteerism is a huge piece of that. We have universities, colleges, companies, individuals, working at ESP. ESP has actually been around for almost 40 years. Which is pretty amazing. And so back in 1986, it was founded by Martha Wiley. And it really started off as a summer camp and some club events where we'd have continuous events for families and the participants. I mentioned participants, and so there's a reason for that. So ESP actually supports individuals of all abilities from basically birth all the way through late in life. The other thing that's very interesting about that is that no matter that disability, or we call them all abilities, whether it's autism, whether it's something genetic, if it is cerebral palsy, something along those lines, anything and everything, we are accepting of them. And I want you to really think about this for just a second. From an inclusivity standpoint, what that means is that sometimes we have participants and we have family members that are no longer invited back to certain events, let's just say, or certain organizations and that kind of thing, because they don't support that particular disability, for example. We welcome them with open arms. So anybody and everybody. The other thing that we do that's very inclusive is we have significant costs to take care of participants, their families, and everything that goes into what ESP is all about. And we only charge the families for every participant only 25% of the actual cost. And so for the families that can't afford the 25% of the cost, we cover that as well in the form of scholarships. And so I want you to think about how that is. And that's really where my role truly comes into play. We have an emergency support fund for families if they have, an air conditioner that goes out, or maybe a car trouble, something like that. We also do a lot with family support, which is absolutely critical. A lot of times with family members of those with disabilities, that there's usually someone that's staying home with them full time and taking care of them. There's a tremendous amount of, expenses from a medical side, that kind of thing. What we have found is that the ESP community is truly inclusive. And we actually have anywhere from 15 to 17 families that move into the Athens, Georgia area every year to be part of that, which is pretty amazing. And so Athens is where it all started. We actually have a very large facility there. We have a Miracle League field just steps off of our campus there in Athens. And then we also have a fully accessible playground as well. And so one of the very cool things about that is that we partnered up with the city of Watkinsville, and the city of Watkinsville, as part of, very big part of that with ESP, was recognized last week as one of the best cities to live in the country. And so we actually were out there in Colorado celebrating that with them. And one of the very important pieces of that is that we grow from the inside for sure. And so I mentioned Martha Wiley. So Martha Wiley started ESP back in 1986. Not too long after that, as time went on, unfortunately, she passed away with pancreatic cancer. Laura Hope Whitaker is our CEO, and she started off actually as a volunteer for ESP, which is pretty amazing. And so, just kind of fast forward the years as far as that goes. And I mentioned hope first. And the reason why is because that's what ESP is all about. And Laura Hope Whitaker, again, is our CEO. We have a fantastic team. The other thing that we do is we have a program called Java Joy. And Java Joy is a mobile coffee cart program that we have out there that serves hot coffee and iced coffee. Can go to schools, businesses, that kind of thing that's out there. And that is actually served by individuals with disabilities. So that is their job. And so that is something that we're very passionate about. We actually have a permanent Java Joy cart at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So we serve the Atlanta Falcons as well as Atlanta United, which is really cool. We also have a huge camp called Camp Hooray. It's 100 acres in Jackson County, has a big lake on it. That will be the future home of our overnight camp. We already have overnight camp and day camps at ESP at our locations there, of course, Athens, Atlanta, and Rome. And again, soon to be coming to Savannah as well. And this particular property will be the home for our overnight camp for all of our sites, which is going to be pretty amazing. One of the things that we are working on at our new building that we are renovating there in Rome, and the things that we're going to be doing also there at Camp Hooray in Jackson County, is that we're going to make it universally accessible. That is something that is really what we're striving to do. What does that mean, for example? Well, if you have a camper that's in a wheelchair, they can go to overnight camp and sleep on the top bunk.
Oh, wow.
That's what universally accessible, as an example, would be. And so there's a lot of stuff that we do. We do a lot with families, that have individuals with disabilities. They need that camaraderie. They need that support for sure. And so one of the things that we do is that we have events for them. So we'll go and, pick strawberries, do a drive-in movie, go to a Braves game or something like that. We also took 55 families to the beach back about 6 weeks ago, which is pretty awesome. The other thing that we do is we have family dinners every month. And the families and their participants come to those family dinners. Those are supported by local businesses, local individuals or families. And they actually will serve dinner there as well. and we have the food bank there so that they can take food home with them. And so it is a very far-reaching impact. And what is so unique about ESP is that it is a multi-generational impact. We absolutely are taking care of needs today, but I want you to think about how that, truly impacts all of those family members. And so that's a huge part of it. It really is.
Troy, there's so much about that, right? Every time I sit down and talk to you about a little bit more about ESP, and I learned that much more about ESP, it's truly amazing to me, and I can absolutely see how God's hands were all over that, because when you left the industry, you weren't sure where necessarily you were going to land, but where you are today, I absolutely see how that is a divine appointment for you, even to be called into that role. And so, wow. And I promised you that it would be 45 minutes. Believe it or not, we're 49 minutes into it already, Troy. And so I didn't think we'd have a very hard time talking about not only the vocational side of it, but the philanthropical side of it. But brother, I'm going to tell you, I see a lot of joy inside of you. And as we're coming to a close, we here at Latreia, we're so privileged right now to be able to say that, Paul and I both were looking to see how do we exemplify the whole idea of philanthropical. And I happen to live in Columbus, Ohio. Paul is all the way in Atlanta, Georgia. So Cumming, Georgia, actually, and looks forward to being able to help there, not only financially, but also physically help whenever he can, right? So just really looking forward to being able to come alongside you, Troy. So this to me is probably the best way that you and I have ever come together, because we at Latreia can't wait to support you. Percentages of every single client that we will, from this point forward, take on, Troy, we will be giving a percentage of those proceeds directly to ESP. And so we want to be able to not only support what you've started there, with us anyways, at least, you didn't start ESP, but what you've started to bring to our attention, we absolutely want to support. And we want our listeners that if you decide to work with Latreia, that just know that you're making a huge difference to people out there who have disabilities through just being a client of Latreia. So Troy, I can't thank you enough for just even sharing your time today. I can't thank you enough for being a part of such a wonderful organization. I cannot wait to meet your group and to be able to participate in some of the things that you guys do. I just can't wait to volunteer some of that time, as much as, financial things. So I just encourage everybody, as we come to a close, Troy, is there anything you'd like to say to the group?
I would like to share a story if I could.
Absolutely.
So, I mentioned about the participants, and those are the individuals with disabilities. We actually have a participant at our Athens location, and she has autism. Through the course of time, her sister did not want to be around her because the participant with ESP there basically would have outbursts and make noises and things like that. And then, her sister's friends didn't want to be around her and so forth. She joined ESP and she started to see her sister in a completely different light. She saw how her sister was empowered, how her sister was able to shine and be everything that she could be because she was in a community that was just like her. And so what was really amazing about that, she actually we have a talent show, JA, that's really cool. And we have that at the beginning of each year in the February timeframe. We roll out a red carpet, the whole 9 yards. And Claudia got to participate in that. Everyone at ESP, every participant is a celebrity and they are celebrated. And one of the things that happened within that family is that her sister wanted to spend more time with her. Her sister's friends wanted to spend more time with her as well. So the ripple effect continues to move on. And we're super excited about having that ripple continue to grow from ESP. And we can't thank you, JA and Paul enough, and Latreia, for all of your support, what you're doing to help us to continue that mission and helping those individuals with disabilities and their families. And again, what we're doing is we're changing communities for the better. And we're just so excited to be on this journey with you.
Oh man. We can do so much, right? We really can do so much, and the privilege is on us. And I can't say enough about that. And the fact that I get to do it with you, brother, is icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. And I love that story. I love the fact that everyone is celebrated, right? Absolutely. Think about that. For everybody that's listening and watching this show right now, as we come to a close, I want you to think about, sometimes we keep thinking about, I just came back from Mastermind, where I saw a bunch of people cross the stage about their success and all of those kind of things. Can you imagine taking and sitting in the audience and watching those with serious disabilities take the stage, walk across that red carpet, and see the elation on their faces? Pretty incredible stuff. So, Troy, thanks for blessing us today. Thanks for being an incredible, incredible man to Latreia, and just being a great friend to us and a good brother to us at the same time, for all the things that you're doing out there. I just wish you the best. I wish you, I hope that we become so successful, that becomes so successful, and that we make a difference that way. But Troy, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to you, as I say goodbye to our audience as well. But I hope to have you back. I would
love to be back.
Yeah, I'd like to see you later down the line a little bit more, and sure. See how much of what else we could be doing, and what else our partners could be doing to match even. There's so many different ways we can look at this thing. But everybody, Troy, thanks again.
You're very welcome. I'm honored to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. I'll send you back to the green room. Enjoy the refreshments there, the virtual refreshments, right? Sorry.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Wow. I you know what? There's certain episodes where you just kind of wonder to yourself, how's this going to go? And is there really a tie-in between vocational and philanthropical success? And you just felt it. I hope you did. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you can take it away from myself, take it away from Troy, and start to look at the letters ESP, extra special people. And then I hope you find it inside your heart to maybe get involved, however way. So with that, it has been my pleasure, and what an honor to host a good friend, and at the same time, hopefully make a difference in your lives. That's really what it's about, and others as well. So with your vocational and your philanthropical being well balanced, I believe you can achieve joyful success beyond just becoming vocationally successful and financially well off. So with that said, guys, as always, love you all, and be blessed, and go be a blessing. See you on the next episode.
And that wraps another episode of Challenging Your Status Quo. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to carry into your daily lives. If JA has inspired you, join our community by subscribing to the podcast. Stay connected with us at latreiacoaching.com and through our social media channels, where the conversation and growth continue. On behalf of JA and his whole team, we thank you for listening and invite you to keep challenging the status quo in your own life. Until next time, remember, pursue excellence, live purposefully, and embrace holistic success. We'll catch you next episode.